afternoon. Welcome to XM Live Education. This is the advanced room. Once per week, analyst versus trader. My name is Stanislav Kolev. I will be the trader, and I have Rafi Boyajan as the analyst in the following 1 hour. And I gotta say, very interesting week, even though was not too eventful. Yeah, Rafi, what's going on? How is everything? Good to see you.
Yeah, hello, Sandy. Good to see you too. Yeah, it's been a bit of a odd week because we've had some headlines, but on the whole, we're kind of ending the week with not lot that has changed. Even though the kind of stuff we did, the headlines we got were kind of significant. So we started things pretty positively. We had Trump kind of backing down on his threat to slap 50% tariff on the EU. A couple of days later, we got an even better news that actually there's a specific court in the US that deals with international trade issues, and they basically blocked most of Trump's tariffs, which then got overturned. Of course, we're going to discuss all that in more detail. So now we're kind of at a place where, things are kind of better as it was last week, but we still have this uncertainty, day-to-day uncertainty, which is kind of keeping markets in the sidelines. So in many respects, we haven't had many interesting moves, but I'm sure you, Stanley, are going to kind of like help us kind of discover the trends within the trends to kind of give us a better idea of, what kind of things we should be looking out for. And of course, we are also expecting some important US data in about 25 minutes time, so we could get some action later on.
That's right. Very, very dynamic trading week. Also, we got very interesting comments that even though tariffs don't get imposed, there are other ways that President Trump has to control things. I'm very interested to see on which side of the bed this guy woke up this morning and see what will be the resolutions around tariffs and around actually this EU drama. It's pretty much roller coaster. One day they say no, 50% is fine, then they say okay, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna find a way out of this. I'm not sure really how it's going. I'm not sure if we might not see a little bit euro sell off or euro get hurt, not particularly against the US dollar, but maybe against commodity currencies, which have not been performing bad for the time being, talking mostly New Zealand dollar, but I also like kind of Australian dollar. Um, where do we start with? How you suggest where we start?
Uh, Yeah, I think maybe we can start with US stocks because this kind of what stands out to me is how Wall Street has kind of managed to sort of ignore all the headlines pretty much. Yes, we saw a lot of choppiness, intraday choppiness, especially if you're looking at the futures. But I mean, I was surprised the fact that we didn't see a big sell-off yesterday when, of course, the appeals court basically went in Trump's favor. So they basically said not reinforcing, but they basically they canceled the international trade court's ruling that the tariffs are for now they're applicable. They reversed basically the other courts, the lower court's decision, and I was expecting a much bigger sell-off. But even a day earlier, what's interesting is that even before the reversal, we were seeing that optimism kind of fade a little bit because, as you mentioned earlier, Trump or the Trump administration, they're already kind of were looking at alternative ways they could impose tariffs or implement Trump's trade policy. So basically, this particular ruling was on a specific law. So it was that law where basically they decided that the Trump they can't act without the consent of the US Senate. So the reciprocal tariffs, which falls under this particular law, kind of was at risk of being canceled. Of course, the final decision isn't due until later in June. I think by June the 9th, each side will basically, when I say each side, the other side is actually a number of small businesses which actually had the courage to take this issue to file a lawsuit in the International Trade Court. I think that's based in Manhattan, if I'm not mistaken, and basically saying that what Trump is doing is illegal, and the court agreed with them. But now the appeals court is saying, we're going to have to hear each side to make a final ruling. And potentially, it could go to the Supreme Court, so it could drag on. But I think markets have kind of come to the conclusion that whatever happens, Trump's going to find some other way of imposing tariffs or kind of pressuring the US's trade allies to kind of give ground in terms of, basically whether allowing US more access to their markets or lowering their own tariffs. So it looks like this isn't going to end anytime soon, whatever happens. So I kind of like expecting equities to kind of suffer a bit more. I mean, yes, we had some big positives like the Nvidia earnings. So that obviously helped keep the index kind of supported.
Yep.
But it's if you look at the others, if you kind of take out what was happening specifically to the court cases with the EU, as you said, that was kind of expected. We've seen that previously as well. So it wasn't a huge sort of relief, if you like, that Trump backed down on the 50% tariffs. And then, of course, we're still waiting for a trade deal with India and Japan. Now, Japan now appears to be edging closer. Maybe even this weekend there might be an announcement potentially that just probably not, but there's a slight chance, so something to keep an eye on. But on the whole, I was expecting equities to kind of take a bigger hit, but it looks like investors for the time being, they're kind of staying cautiously optimistic. So S&P 500, the US 500, kind of looking to end the week positive. And I think on the months, obviously, we had the rebound from that huge sell-off in April. And of course, the standouts this week, Nvidia, and we might see a bit of a rally in Dell potentially later today as well. But yeah, so I don't know what you make of all this, Stanley. Are you kind of buying all this sort of cautious optimism, or do you think that we should be worried?
No, I don't think that we should be worried. At least there is no. I mean, on market doesn't react on bad news. It doesn't sell off on bad news. Market is very pretty much AI driven, and market is really buying the good earning reports that are more than enough for it to get bought. Yeah, because economy, whatever, if companies are doing fine, everything is fine. I mean, economic situation, we don't have any. Yeah, we had a little bit stagflationary environment. We had some stagflationary data, but things seems to be shifting into positive direction. Inflation to the target goal. And if something breaks, Fed will be ready to cut interest rates. So if we start seeing, let's say, labor market deterioration, we already have seen the jobless claims at pretty high levels. I think we haven't seen it since 2021 this high. Continuing jobless claims. I will just open the chart in a second. Um, and also the market didn't sell off on bad news where um, Trump is blocking um, chip makers to sell to China. So it was not selling off on this. The reason I believe is that even they don't sell directly to China, they're going to sell through some proxy. There is going to be some country company that's going to say, okay, let us buy your chips. They're going to add additional price on top and resell to China. Anyway, we have a comment watching from my house from Modern Heroes. Thanks so much for tuning in. Everybody that's watching us from YouTube and from XM Live, just bring it on. We also have Oldman. And the chat, thanks Oldman for being here. What's moving gold and Dow Jones? Um, Could be any tweet in particular. Of course, it can. I'll just check in a moment and see what's going on. I think that we have some good opportunity uh, with individual stock better than the stock market, at least for me. Um, and I also, since mentioned, I like gold pretty much. That old one did mention from the chat. I absolutely love gold and maybe even trade it in this hour. It is retesting exactly the structure that we mentioned earlier. Here we're even having a false breakout. I will just give it some time. Maybe something is going on because just now stock market is selling off. Yeah, just now we have a sell-off and we got gold going up. So some classical risk on-off transition. Oh yes, President Trump, China. Uh, 2 weeks ago, China was in grave economic danger. The very high tariffs I set made it virtually impossible for China to trade in the US marketplace, which is by far number one in the world. We went in effect cold turkey with China, and it was devastating for them. Many factories closed, and there was, to put it mildly, civil unrest. I saw what was happening and didn't like it. For them, not for us. I made a fast deal with China in order to say, all right, again, so he didn't chicken out, eh? Uh, with China in order to save them from what I thought was going to be a very bad situation, and I didn't want to see what happens because of this deal. Everything quickly stabilized and China got back to business as usual. Everybody was happy. This is good news. The bad news is that China, perhaps not surprising to some, has totally violated its agreement with us. So much for being, so much for being Mr. Nice Guy. And I'm not sure what's going on, but the market to- totally violated its agreement with us. That's why we have the S&P going down, and we have gold shooting up. I'm not sure if this is something tradable or it's just another fugazi that he's spitting. So I mean, I was interested to see on which side of the bed this guy woke up. It seemed that he didn't sleep too well last night, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, we had comments from Besant actually. He said that talks with China are a bit stalled. So I guess this was kind of to be expected. But yeah, I'm not sure what he means that China has violated its agreement. Is it because the trade talks aren't going well, or because they did something specific to violate whatever deal they had, which they didn't really release much details on that preliminary agreement. But potentially it means that this is a major setback in the negotiations. Let's see if there's going to be any further announcement on the back of this. But yeah, so I think for now it's clearly negative for the markets. But then, yeah, I think obviously it wasn't going to be smooth sailing, because of course the two are still quite far apart. So probably any sell-off is not going to be anything too drastic. But yeah, this clearly adding to the it's another twist to how the week is about to end, because of course always Trump always manages to just stick something in right at the end before the markets close. Well, now they're open, but let's see if there's going to be further news, if developments coming on the back of this during the US session. And then, yeah, it's interesting that this just comes minutes before we're getting that crucial US data. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that we have to watch and see what's going to happen.
Yeah, and as you say, it is intriguing exactly how the violation is, if there is any, because it could be just a bluff. I mean, it could be just another nothing that he does. Um, it's crazy. He is wild. So we got inflation data in a few moments. Do you have any expectations?
So yeah, I don't think it's going to get anything interesting, right? Because we were kind of thinking, yeah, April is going to be when the reciprocal tariffs came into effect, so we're going to see this huge jump in inflation, and because of course we've got those extensions. I mean, yes, a whole bunch of products are supposedly 10% more expensive as of April, but maybe 10% is enough for most businesses to kind of absorb those costs for the time being, at least. And also there was a lot of front loading as well, so I guess the goods bought when the tariffs were actually implemented, those haven't been basically brought onto the market. Potentially, that's another maybe reason why we're not expecting a big jump in April. May, for the month of May, it's obviously going to be more important. But looking at the forecasts, I mean, the Reuters forecast is core PC 2.6. If we look at the Cleveland, sorry, 2.5%, which would be slight moderation from 2.6 in March. If you're looking at the Cleveland Fed forecast, that's a little bit higher, 2.6% for core PCE. On the whole, yeah, I mean,